going up now as fast as I am. That's 360 miles per hour. I'm going after it.
Moments later, Captain Mantell's mission had ended. Occasionally, the tables were turned. More than one alien craft crashed and was recovered for secret U.S. military research. The most famous case took place in July of 1947, just outside the community of Roswell, New Mexico. Famous because local officials openly admitted they had retrieved an alien ship before their commanders instructed them to keep the story confidential. What you can't explain, they reasoned, you must deny.
July of 1947, the Army Air Forces at Roswell announced we had captured a flying saucer. You can say our government announced in July of 1947 they had a flying saucer. 3 hours later, they announced, no, it's merely a weather balloon. The officers at Roswell made a mistake. But our government has come forward and said, yes, we had a flying saucer. Then they took it back.
Any one of your viewers can go back to the newspapers on July 8th, July 9th of 1947 and just front page headline after headline that the government had captured a flying saucer.
Don Schmidt from the Center for UFO Studies in Chicago is convinced that the Roswell case is the linchpin in America's ongoing alien cover-up.
We have over 550 witnesses. They were there. They handled the debris. They saw the craft. They saw the bodies. They handled the crew members of that craft. And invariably they all say, this was not from this earth.
This is the actual site where the Roswell saucer was discovered, along with the bodies of 3 extraterrestrial missionaries who didn't survive the collision. The debris and the dead were impounded and taken away for top-secret study, while a classified investigative committee called the Majestic 12 was organized by President Truman. And a government cover-up was initiated with a calculated disinformation campaign.
The military, I know for a fact, has established what's called disinformation programs, officially sanctioned deception programs. This is covered by a regulation at Department of Defense level that's secret. This is the case with the unidentified flying objects. I cannot say that the Roswell incident was a cover-up, but I can certainly say that the government back then and today acted like it was a cover-up and has been subject to being accused of a cover-up.
The flying saucer debris at Roswell was attributed to a downed weather balloon. There was no explanation for the alien body parts among the wreckage. Before long, other sightings were dismissed as optical illusions caused by electrified swamp gas, with elaborate demonstrations staged for newsreel cameras to back up the claim. But while the Pentagon refused to publicly admit aliens had arrived on Earth, their top-secret internal memos told a different story, even detailing the various ships and the creatures they had autopsied. Meanwhile, the American people fell in love with flying saucers, sensing something playful in their alien design. Before long, even the military seemed to fall under the trance of the UFOs. Government inventors began to mimic what they were seeing in the sky, in a strategy to stumble upon the secrets of advanced alien technology. These rare films chronicle those primitive efforts.
At a symposium conducted by Princeton University, weird and wonderful flying machines developed for the Army go through their paces. The flying scooter, for instance, with only a 7-horsepower motor. Or this flying what have you. Just count your fingers after starting the fans.
The naive attempts to copy the saucers began to look foolish, especially in July of 1952, when real alien ships were routinely buzzing over Washington, D.C., leading fighter pilots on frustrated chases lasting as long as 6 hours. It was the first time since the War of 1812 that our nation's capital had been successfully invaded by a foreign power. By the early 1960s, UFOs were having a chilling effect on our defense operations. Their tremendous speed often caused them to be misidentified as incoming intercontinental ballistic missiles, putting American air bases on red alert. There needed to be some way for the U.S. and the Soviets to distinguish between nuclear attack and alien visitors.
A new weapon is installed in the Pentagon, but it's a weapon of peace. This is the teletype that will operate at the U.S. end of an open line to Moscow. This link, it is hoped, will help avoid misunderstandings that could possibly trigger a catastrophe. Now, a president could be in touch with the Russian premier in a matter of seconds.
The hotline between Moscow and Washington was set up so they could go ahead and make last-minute pleas that we're not attacking you and you're not attacking us. The purpose for this was to ensure that a nuclear war would not be touched off by a UFO appearing on the scopes and being mistaken for enemy aircraft.
The hotline eased some international tensions, but it didn't halt the interaction between the military and the aliens, which continues to this day.
November of 1975, essentially every SAC base in the United States was visited by UFOs. We have reason to believe that the UFOs went ahead and had some effect on changing the codes within the missiles, within the launch control facility, to change where the missiles would hit. 1976, September, Iran. 2 F-4s tried to intercept a UFO and shoot upon the UFO. The weapon systems of the planes go dead. The communication systems go dead. These are just 2 examples of cases which sound like they came out of science fiction, but in reality, they're from government documentation. Documents released by the State Department.
The main engines up and burning.
September 1991. Space Shuttle Mission 48. Commander Clayton and his crew point their cameras at the planet's horizon for a live broadcast to Earth. Many viewers noticed an alien ship playfully cavorting around the shuttle at tremendous speeds. NASA still refuses to acknowledge the incident. But since that time, the space agency no longer allows public access to live unscrambled television signals from shuttle missions. Currently in 1995, the Federal Emergency Management Agency trains personnel with a manual that suggests techniques in communicating with extraterrestrials encountered in the line of duty. This document is in marked contrast to a federal law passed by Congress in 1969, which makes it illegal for any American to have contact with an extraterrestrial, punishable by a $5,000 fine and a year in jail. Ironically, both documents were composed by a government which refuses to publicly admit that there is intelligent life on other planets. Indications are that government, military, and scientific leaders will soon release nearly a half-century of official documentation of ongoing alien encounters on Earth. Perhaps they feel it would be too embarrassing not to reveal the truth before the truth reveals itself. But these FBI files acquired through the Freedom of Information Act outline nearly 50 years of UFO reports investigated by federal agents all across America. Overwhelming evidence that something sinister is at work. But look carefully. The torn pages, the ragged copies, the large areas blacked out in an effort to keep secrets locked away.
If we are keeping information, which I am certain we are, from the American public on unidentified flying objects, then we're wrong. Government has an obligation to the people to tell the truth. No matter what that truth might be, the people have a right to know that planet Earth is being visited by a highly evolved intelligence.
Public deception, the private anguish, and an astounding way to make virtual contact with extraterrestrial creatures in a terrifying alien encounter from New Tomorrowland. From New Tomorrowland.
The fact is, everyone encounters alien life forms each day. We've just become accustomed to ignoring the evidence. We expect the first visitors from outer space to arrive in flying saucers. But there are new scientific suggestions that the microbiotic organisms, which routinely invade human bodies in the form of viral disease, may have extraterrestrial connections. These minute alien life forms may very well be the advanced invasion force, leading the way to test Earth's environment for more complex and determined creatures. The idea is not new. Arrhenius, a Swedish chemist who died in 1927, first proposed the theory of transfermia, the notion that life is universally dispersed, possibly carried by cosmic winds across the vast expanse of the galaxy in the form of viral spores. Uncovering this mutating alien life is an ongoing government project carried out by scientific teams at NASA. They begin by collecting meteors which have landed on the barren landscape of Antarctica. Here, low temperatures preserve the alien life clinging to 4 billion-year-old cosmic debris. In the specially sealed clean room at the Johnson Space Center, these crude interstellar spaceships are carefully dissected to extract the biotic matter inside. Amino acids, a kaleidoscope of organic compounds, and the chemical catalysts of life are analyzed with sophisticated gas chromatographs and mass spectrometers. Life is plentiful in the universe and eerily tenacious. Lately, scientists have found extraordinary numbers of unknown organisms which have gained a biological foothold where we once thought survival would be impossible. They grow in deadly ammonia gas. They are resistant to ultraviolet radiation. They thrive inside the radioactive cooling systems of nuclear power plants. And they can even survive the vacuum of space, reanimating themselves when air and water become available. Riding inside the stone cocoon of a meteor, life can travel virtually anywhere, and a good deal of it lands on planet Earth. But just as we explore the genetic package of alien life, visitors from space are routinely examining human specimens, abducting men, women, and children in order to conduct disturbing biological experiments.
Very, very few people who've had the experience are willing to talk about it publicly. There is such a kind of ridicule factor.
Bud Hopkins, researcher and author of the best-selling book Intruders, is America's leading investigator into the alien abduction phenomenon and largely responsible for bringing the astonishing situation to the nation's attention.
The most important thing about this, I think, in studying it, is to realize that there are very distinct patterns. This is not just a box full of crazy experiences which are mutually contradictory. The patterns start this way. People are abducted first in childhood.
When I go back into my memory, I don't know a day without them.
And they are then re-abducted over many, many, many years.
When I saw this light on the freeway, my first reaction was, oh my God, not again. I grabbed the side of my bed like, no, you're not gonna get away with this. You're not gonna get away with it this time.
Then I feel lifted off of the bed, and the next thing that I remember is being on a table or a bench and these beings surrounding me.
Samples are taken from the skin. There are very distinct scars that result from these biopsies, whatever we want to call them.
I have a scar on my hand. It seems to be a triangle shape that's a half an inch by half an inch if you were to measure it.
They were just red and blistery and kind of in a large equilateral triangle on each foot.
The basic, most common mark is what we call a scoop mark. It's a circular depression, as if the aliens have used a little tool and removed a layer of cells.
On my upper left inner thigh, I have two marks. There's a series of two. They're about 1/8 of an inch deep and about 1/4 inch in diameter that people call scoop marks for lack of a better term.
Often an object is inserted in the nostril or behind the eyeball or in the ear, which we believe to be implants.
On my shin, between my ankle and my knee, were two puncture marks. In fact, I hesitate to call them that because they were larger and deeper. They were like two holes drilled vertically along my shin into my leg. And that frightened me deeply because I have no idea how those got there. I could only speculate as to why they were doing that, although I do know that, bone marrow contains genetic material, blood.
They're interested in who you are genetically.
They seem to be desperate for our genetic material, our DNA, our particular genetic makeup, as if they have reached some point of, let's say, some point of no return in their evolutionary development, and they need to revivify themselves through something they can get from us, a more primitive and perhaps more robust species. People generally describe one particular type of figure as the basic alien type, which is a small figure, 3.5 to 4.5 feet tall, huge head, huge black eyes, hairless, grayish-white skin, just a tiny slit for a mouth that doesn't move, and so forth. I'd say that accounts for about 85% of the descriptions.
There's some that are very, they talk about the reptilian being like sexually aggressive, and then there's some that look like praying mantis that are very mean and very violent. It is a violation of your body. It's a violation of your space. They don't ask permission. They take you. On this earth, when you are raped, when you are mugged, even if you don't see that person that is doing you bodily harm, you have somewhere to go. You can go to the police and at least give a report whether they do something or not. You have somewhere to go. But in this case, you have no one to talk to. You have no one to say, this has happened to me. I've been so violated. You don't even know. And you're not ready for this.
My love life went to hell. My schooling went to hell. Everything went to hell.
And it's terrifying, it's not fun, it ruins your life because you have nowhere to go.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high like a diamond in the sky. Makes me want to cry.
Part of the trauma involved in this is our government telling us that these objects don't exist. And I seem, and other members of my family, and other people seem to have these experiences. It makes you doubt your sanity.
The range of people who have had abductions around the world, because it is a global phenomenon, is just, it's a total range. I've worked with people who are of Oriental backgrounds, African-American background, Hispanics. I've worked with one NASA scientist, a research scientist, who was an abductee, a police lieutenant from the South, doctors, lawyers. I mean, I've had, incidentally, 7 psychiatrists come to me because of their own personal abduction experiences. The phenomenon affects people from all walks of life.
And it has a dramatic effect on families. Debbie and Terry know firsthand. Both are ongoing abductees with deep concerns about the chilling connections between aliens and their children.
I thought this was mental illness. Then my son started speaking about little airmen coming into his room and taking us up, and there was even one point where he said, "They took blood out of you, Mama." He wanted guarding all the time. He wouldn't go to bed at night unless I slept with him. He was angry. And the other thing is he started setting traps. One night my husband came home from work and there's these little colored stones all over the garage. And Dale, my husband, said, "What is this for?" And he says, "Well, this is when the airmen come, they slip and fall on their butts."
The interesting thing about children is a sort of innocence about their perceptions. I will present these cards of different heads, and there's Santa Claus, Batman, policeman, a clown, Ninja Turtle, an alien. What we do is to see how the child responds when we get to the alien face, and it can be extremely moving because I've seen children just collapse when they see the drawing of the alien, crying, hugging their fathers or their mothers in terror.
Well, she was 4 years old, and she was past bedwetting and all of that behavior. She was beyond that, and she'd never wet her bed. And when we moved to Banning, she started having nightmares every night and wetting her bed. And a couple of weeks ago, she had a bunch of scratches on her face, and she didn't have them when she went to bed. I said,
what happened? And it was funny, the only thing I could get out of her was that she asked me, do aliens hurt you? And I went, what?
And a woman told me, for instance, that her little girl, when she was first able to talk, would tell her about these nightmares of what she called the bugs coming in the room. And they were big bugs with big eyes. And again, there were some physical marks, all the surrounding evidence suggesting abductions. At one point, the mother, a few years later, was getting out of the car with her daughter at a shopping mall, and the Goodyear blimp was coming over. And the little child said, Mommy, look, don't you remember when you and I were up in that thing with the bugs?
The last time I had a session, in that session I actually saw Lexi being escorted by two small grays, and it was very upsetting to me. I could not handle the fact that my daughter was being subjected to something that I had no control over. And when I think you have no control over something, that you're so helpless, it's like your child's drowning or something, and you can't save them.
I feel like I'm going to go crazy because there isn't anything I could do for my son.
I know.
One of the most interesting things, too, from the child's point of view, has to do with the fact that communication is telepathic. One little boy drew on some drawings he'd made for me of the aliens. He put on the side of the head, each alien head, a gigantic ear, just one. And his mother said, what's that? And he said, well, Mommy, I know they don't have ears, but I put that there because, you know, they can hear everything you're thinking.
When we return, Robert Urich takes you to the new Tomorrowland in Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom, where Disney Imagineers are creating extra terrestrial excitement, preparing the public for cosmic contact with a virtual alien encounter at Walt Disney World. When we reach Encounters from New Tomorrowland.
This is an official UFO sighting report, one of thousands compiled over the last few decades. This particular report from October 1969 was filled out by Jimmy Carter. He was still governor of Georgia at the time. He witnessed a luminous object suspended in the twilight sky. Later, when he assumed the office of President of the United States, his staff attempted to explore the availability of official investigations into alien contact. As this internal government memo illustrates, there are some security secrets outside the jurisdiction of the White House.
We investigated lights in the sky for over 20 years. We didn't get anywhere. We have over 100,000 cases from over 160 countries in our files at the Center for UFO Studies in Chicago. When you actually take the time to look at the official record, look at the actual declassified, disclosed documents on the phenomena, and I'll guarantee you'll walk away saying, why weren't we told about this? And why were we told something else altogether? We've all been indoctrinated to have this knee-jerk response just to that term, UFO. We have to ask ourselves, who started it? And isn't it about time we go out and find out for ourselves?
Every year, NASA routinely propels about 24 astronauts into a low Earth orbit aboard the space shuttle, a loud, lumbering, somewhat primitive rocket ship. But most Americans will likely explore outer space aboard crafts of alien origin. Statistics indicate a greater probability that you will experience extraterrestrial contact in the next 5 years than the chances that you will win a state lottery. But how do you prepare for such an extraordinary event? Here in the new Tomorrowland at Disney World, scientists and Disney engineers have brought to life a possible scenario that helps acclimate the public to their inevitable alien encounter. Welcome to the new Tomorrowland Convention Center in the Magic Kingdom, where humans can enjoy their first taste of the future, as well as advanced extraterrestrial technology, and begin to understand the disturbing facets of alien intelligence. Access Technologies, an interplanetary manufacturing and marketing conglomerate, is one of the first alien firms to take advantage of this showcase facility in New Tomorrowland, introducing humans to technology which promises to seize the future. Today, guests are exploring the concept of teleportation, the ability to transmit solid matter or living creatures across the endless void of space. Inside this chamber, at the extraterrestrial alien encounter attraction, cosmic representatives will demonstrate the secrets of a brave new world. Utilizing the ominous device, two very different life forms will make contact via the teleportation process. Unfortunately, high technology can backfire if operated by careless hands. As the seat restraints lock into place and the power generators are activated by anxious extraterrestrials, these happy humans are about to discover a disturbing truth. When science fiction becomes science fact, the results could be terrifying.
Alien Encounter opens at Walt Disney World summer 1995.
Slowly mutate into bizarre, fleshy organisms at our feet. Understanding the nature of these strange creatures from above and below is the greatest challenge of our age. We now know that our future, indeed the future of Earth itself, rests in the balance of the solid and the ethereal, of common sense and the irrational, and our relationship with alien life as grotesque as a fungus or as glorious as the heavens.
This extraordinary story. Astronaut Gordon Cooper shares his incredible UFO encounters.
We were flying quite high. How high, we couldn't tell.
The exclusive interview of a real American hero. A young girl's mysterious disappearance.
Like the doorway to heaven.
Hear their amazing stories. Two girls have a frightening experience with an alien force.
It is a UFO by definition. It did terrorize them.
On the paranormal borderline.
Let's say you don't believe this planet is being visited by aliens and UFOs. You may be changing your mind in the next several minutes. We have an exclusive interview with a true American hero, a man who knows aircraft and spacecraft. A man who has risked his life in America's space program. A man who knows UFOs are very real. His name, Gordon Cooper.
He was one of the pioneers, one of the original 7 NASA astronauts. Together they wrote a new chapter in the history of mankind, the first exploration of space. His illustrious career as an aviator spanned decades, and during that time, Colonel Gordon Cooper saw it all. He was an Air Force lieutenant and jet pilot at the age of 22. After obtaining an aeronautical engineering degree, he became a test pilot. And then came the call from NASA to join America's space program. On May 15, 1963, Gordon Cooper launched into space while the whole world watched. In person at Cape Canaveral, Florida, on television sets around the U.S. and Europe, and over radios virtually everywhere else, the world held its breath. And mission were overwhelming successes. Cooper, our last astronaut to go into space alone, set the record for the longest flight by an American.
Roger.
After the flight, President John Kennedy spoke to Cooper and gave this news conference.
We're proud of Major Cooper, and we're proud of all those thousands of Americans who worked with him to make this flight possible.
Gordon Cooper returned to Earth a hero and a national symbol of American achievement and courage. Clearly, he had the right stuff. But there is another side to Cooper's lifetime in aviation. One that for years he would only discuss with close friends, until now. It involved his personal encounters with UFOs. For him, it began in 1951 while flying in Europe for the U.S. Air Force. There, Cooper and other pilots witnessed an incident that has never been officially explained. A vast armada of UFOs flying in formation at extremely high altitudes. Recently, Yolanda Gaskin spoke with Gordon Cooper. In this exclusive interview, Colonel Cooper spoke for the first time on television about his encounters with UFOs.
I read about this incident you had in 1951, and you said you saw literally hundreds of unidentifiable flying objects.
Yes, they were flying quite high. How high we couldn't tell because we couldn't get anywhere near their altitude. But they were either very large craft way up or smaller craft still well above what we could get to.
For a day and a half, all of this happened. But then no one wanted to talk about it.
Well, we sent a report forward on it, and the answer that finally came back months later was they were probably high-flying seed pods, which didn't sound very logical.
There are always a lot of excuses. There's always the weather balloons. I've heard that one before. And
weather balloons frequently, by the way, are often mistaken for UFOs. I chased one time in an airplane, and boy, it really looked like a big saucer very high, and I had an afterburner going and got as high as I could get in this airplane. And as I started pulling up along close to it, I had a very shamefaced look on my face when I realized it was a big weather balloon with the radio package hanging under it.
But still, the point is that you could get close to that. In 1951, you couldn't even get close to the things that were flying overhead. You or anyone else that was flying.
They were faster, higher.
6 years later, Cooper again encountered a UFO. This one definitely was not a weather balloon. While supervising flight testing at Edwards Air Force Base, his military camera crew actually filmed an unidentified saucer-shaped object landing near the site.
As they were sitting there filming, a little saucer came from, I say little saucer, it was a saucer, came flying over their heads, put down 3 little landing gear and landed right out on the dry lake bed. And they picked up their cameras and started over toward it, filming as they went. And when they got in fairly close to it, it lifted up, put the gear back in the wheel wells, tipped up, and took off at a great rate of speed. And so they came into my office and told me what had happened, and I sent them over to develop the film, and then had to go through all the proper regulations of reporting this, and we wound up having to send the film forward to Washington in the base jet airplane, and I don't know whether anyone's ever seen it since.
Now, the vehicle that you just described, how similar was it to the very first sighting that you had back in 1951?
Quite similar. It was basically the same plan-form vehicle. They were double saucer, lenticular. But if you're going to be going in and out of atmospheres like Earth or other places might have, you certainly need a little more aerodynamic type of vehicle. And the saucer has the capability of going through the air at tremendous rates of speed and handling the bow and trailing wave without making shock waves. So it can be very silent while traveling at big rates of speed through the atmosphere.
But sightings of UFOs weren't limited to the military. Cooper has commercial airline colleagues who've also seen UFOs.
Yes, a friend of mine who's a captain on a major airline at night was flying along, noticed this, suddenly a big glow came off his left wing, and he looked out and this big saucer was sitting right off their wing. And so he turned slide toward and it moved away, turned back and it moved back in position, and turned to his co-pilot and said, do you see what I see? And he said, oh God, yeah, I do. And it trailed along with him for quite a period of time and tipped up and climbed very steeply away.
For years, many rumors have circulated about astronaut sightings of UFOs in space. Cooper believes most of them are false, with one exception.
To my knowledge, the only thing that was ever seen on any of our space flights, and believe me, all of us would like to have seen something, was on Jim McDivitt's Gemini 7 mission, where they saw this glint of something metallic off in the distance, and he reported, and nobody had it listed on the ground, so he tried getting a picture of it, but the sun, unfortunately, was glinting off of it so bright. All you got is just a glint. There was no detail on what it was, but never any further sighting at all on it.
Years later, Cooper approached the United Nations with a proposal for a committee that would explore the UFO phenomenon.
All right, now tell me about the letter to the UN.
Well, the letter to the UN was in conjunction with a meeting that I had with Kurt Waldheim and the Security Council of the UN to try to encourage the UN to establish a committee to start comparing notes and data and information and to really look into all of this from an unbiased, neutral point of view.
Here's a quote from your letter. I believe that these extraterrestrial vehicles and their crews are visiting this planet from other planets and are obviously a little more advanced than we are here on Earth. And are you saying that's exactly why governments have been trying to keep this information private, because of that obvious advancement?
Very possibly, right.
Maybe someone's listening. This year, NASA announced Project Origins. Its goal? To search for inhabitable planets orbiting nearby stars.
I think we'll see our government having a totally different approach, really, to the UFO situation, or extraterrestrial, or whatever we want to call it. I think the pressure that comes to bear on the government from whatever reason they withhold information is certainly getting more and more and more. So I would like to think that they're going to really release all the information.
Did you ever think that we were the only ones, I mean, in this vastness of space, did you ever think that there was a possibility that we were the only planet that actually had some kind of a life form?
No, I've always felt that there are a lot of other planets that have life form. With all those numbers of potentially habitable planets out there, I think we're kind of vain to think that God would habitate only one of them.
I hate to editorialize, but come on, it's pretty clear that various government agencies have information and evidence of alien contact they refuse to release. Hey, just release it. We're grown-ups. We promise not to panic. And we have a right to know. Besides, one of the side benefits of ending a conspiracy is it'll shut up all those conspiracy nuts. Memory can play tricks on us. It's been said that some of what we remember never really happened. And events that may be too shocking are completely forgotten. But photographs don't lie. And that's just what it took for two best friends to piece together one terrifying night.
Since 1990, unidentified flying objects have been witnessed with alarming frequency. What once was a rare occurrence has now become almost commonplace, causing experts to call the 90s the decade of contact. But so far, no one has produced hard evidence of an up-close experience with an alien presence. Until now. July 20, 1993, Northern California. Two high school girls, Ray and Carrie, embark on an afternoon hike to a local reservoir.
We went to the reservoir where we always went, and Ray wanted to take some pictures of the reservoir.
That's when we noticed this light. We watched it for a long time, just mesmerized by it.
We discussed what it could possibly be. At first we thought it was a star, but then we realized it wasn't dark enough to be a star and there were no others there.
And then it started to move really quickly. It couldn't have been a plane because it moved too fast, and then it just disappeared. It just flew off behind the side of this mountain.
Suddenly, a series of odd events. Carrie's normally obedient dog, Harley, raced off toward the light and wouldn't come back. The girls lost all sense of time as darkness seemed to fall instantly. Then they were stricken by an overwhelming sense of terror.
All as I could think of is I didn't want to be there at that moment. I wanted to get home. We took off running home. We tried to call Harley back, but she wouldn't come.
When the girls arrived home, they were out of breath and near hysteria.
They were scared. They were not just being silly teenagers. I really realized there was fear in what they were telling me.
The girls were clearly panic-stricken, but they could not explain why. Michael Lindemann is a UFO researcher who maintains one of the world's largest databases on contact experiences.
I think they met something, a phenomenon of some kind that had this effect upon them. It is a UFO by definition. It could have been intelligent. It did terrorize them, so it did something to them, in my opinion.
Later that week, the photos Ray took at the reservoir came in the mail.
I pull out the pictures and I start looking through them, and I see these 4 pictures with the lights, and I just drop down on my driveway and start looking through all these pictures. I was just in shock that I had it on film.
These are the actual photos. The girls don't remember seeing the object come this close or taking these pictures.
Ray didn't take a picture of the light on purpose. She had taken photos before we saw the light. If you look at the picture, it looks like the light is right in front of the photo, right in front of us, but I don't remember seeing it that close or anything.
Jeff Sainio analyzes photos with the Mutual UFO Network.
I've never had a photograph of an object that appears to be this close before. The photos told a much more complete story than what was remembered consciously. You can see a very small dot, which is proper focus to be a real object out there, not just a film defect. And then in the next two photographs, you see an object that's probably about a foot across and about 15 feet away at the most. Very bright and fast moving, so very frightening object.
The girls have no recollection of the object they photographed. Did they experience the phenomenon UFO researchers call missing time?
Several different things can happen during missing time. First of all, the person can wander around in a forgetful state. Second of all, the person can go unconscious. Third of all, they can be taken somewhere else. Sometimes we hear people taken aboard craft or put into a strange, different reality, and that reality can then be blanked from their mind.
You know, it scared me after I thought about it. It really scared me because I thought, what if there really was something there? And what if the girls just disappeared? And nobody ever knew what happened to them.
Hypnosis has been widely used to recall repressed memories. Memories that are often too horrifying to deal with in a conscious state. The girls have never undergone hypnosis, so we may never know what happened to them on that summer afternoon. However, the photos they took may provide the first concrete evidence that missing time is real.
In this case, there are two girls affected the same way. That strongly argues for an external event.
Just not knowing what it could be. That was the scary part.
I used to think that, you know, there was nothing out there. Now maybe there is.
This was just a small story. Another one of thousands of alien encounters. But perhaps it's one more piece in a mosaic. And someday, we'll be able to step back and see the entire picture. I'm Jonathan Frakes. Good night.
Under 24-hour armed guard, and trespassers will be shot on sight. But why is the military keeping people out?
Who's the enemy?
Is it because they're hiding something within?
That there are craft up there, classic flying saucer-looking vehicles.
Area 51, a journey inside.
Area 51 has been the location of choice for our blackest projects.
A special paranormal borderline. A brand new episode next Tuesday on UPN.